Welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling money vocabulary.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it's these essential phrases that we all use to navigate our financial lives, everything from, budgeting to investing.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's so fascinating how, language can really shape how we make financial decisions.
Totally.
It's not just about knowing what money is, it's like using the right words to like really understand and manage it, effectively.
Right. And like think about it, we use specific words for earning money, for spending money, for saving money. It's like this whole secret language of personal finance.
Yeah. I love that secret language. And just like learning any other new language, like mastering this vocabulary opens up a whole new level of understanding.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, we've been checking out English learning, money vocabulary and phrases.
Oh, cool.
It's this podcast where a financial expert, who also happens to be an English teacher, breaks down all these key terms in a really accessible way.
Yeah, that's such a great combination, right? Because it shows how language learning isn't just about grammar and pronunciation. It's about actually acquiring the vocabulary specific to different fields like finance, which then empowers you to navigate those areas, more effectively.
For sure. So let's unpack some of these essential terms, starting with the absolute basics. The podcast really emphasized these two, income and expenses.
Yeah.
It's like the two pillars of your financial world.
Right. And like income being all about the money flowing in, your salary, any side hustle earnings, maybe even that birthday check from grandma.
Exactly.
And then on the flip side, we've got expenses, what's flowing out, rent, groceries, those online shopping sprees. You get the idea.
Yeah. Speaking of those online shopping sprees, how often do you track your expenses? I try to, but I don't know about you, but sometimes those little purchases can really sneak up on me.
Oh, totally. It's a common struggle. But even just like a basic understanding of those two terms, income and expenses, allows you to start asking like the right questions.
Yeah.
Like, okay, is my income enough to cover my expenses? Are my spending habits like actually aligned with my financial goals?
Yeah, and that's so key because like once you have those terms in your vocabulary, you can start like analyzing your own financial situation,
Yes.
making smarter decisions, and maybe even avoiding those impulse buys.
Precisely. And then building off of those two basic concepts, income and expenses, we naturally get to the idea of savings.
Savings, that magical word that everybody loves, but not everyone is great at practicing.
Yeah.
It's like that money that you're supposed to put aside for a rainy day or a dream vacation or, maybe even early retirement.
Right. And it's funny how the very act of labeling money as savings can like, psychologically shift how we view it.
Oh, for sure.
It's no longer just money sitting there, it's money with a purpose, money with a future attached to it.
And then there's budgeting. It feels like such a grown-up word, but does it have to be this scary, restrictive thing?
Not at all. I think a good way to think about a budget is like a roadmap, not like a strat jacket.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a plan that helps you make, conscious decisions about your money, ensuring that you're prioritizing what's truly important to you.
Right. It's like having a plan for your money instead of letting your money have a plan for you.
Ooh, I like that.
And speaking of plans, what about debt? That's a word that can feel kind of heavy for a lot of people.
For sure. Debt represents the money we owe to others, and it often comes with, terms like interest rates and credit score.
Right.
So it's a complex topic with, a lot of societal and personal implications.
Totally. It feels like everyone has a different experience with debt, whether it's student loans, credit card balances, or even just like borrowing money from a friend.
Absolutely. And just understanding the language surrounding debt is crucial for navigating it effectively,
Yeah.
being informed, making responsible decisions, and, ultimately gaining control over your financial well-being.
Okay, so we've covered like the foundational vocabulary, income, expenses, savings, budget, and debt, like the ABCs of personal finance. But what I thought was super interesting in that podcast was how they got into different spending personalities.
Yes. And this is where a language can like really reveal a lot about our attitudes toward money.
Right.
Like the podcast talked about big spenders, those who are always, eager to try the latest restaurant, splurge on cool experiences, maybe even see shopping as a form of entertainment.
Oh, yeah. We all know that friend, right? The one always rocking the newest gadgets and somehow manages to get tickets to every sold-out event.
Totally. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, you've got the frugal folks, the ones who are incredibly mindful of their spending, clip coupons, always finding the best deals.
I admire them. I haven't quite mastered that whole couponing thing myself.
Me neither.
But what I like about this vocabulary is it helps us recognize that neither approach is like good or bad.
Right.
It's about finding what works for you. and aligning your spending habits with your values and goals.
Absolutely.
Speaking of goals, the podcast also really emphasized the importance of saving up for something specific.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
That phrase resonates with me. Instead of just like vaguely putting money aside, you're intentionally working towards something. A down payment on a house, a dream vacation, or even early retirement.
Yeah, and what I love about that phrase, saving up, is that it kind of shifts the focus from deprivation to
Oh,
anticipation.
that's a good point.
You're not denying yourself, you're investing in your future self.
I like that. But let's be real for a sec. Sometimes saving up also requires cutting back on certain expenses, which is where things can get a little challenging.
Totally. Cutting back isn't always glamorous, but it's often a necessary step towards achieving our financial goals. It's about making, conscious choices, differentiating between needs and wants, and finding areas where we can trim the fat, so to speak.
So what are some like practical tips for cutting back? I know the podcast mentioned avoiding those like recurring expenses that don't really add much value.
Yeah. So it could be that gym membership you never use, the subscription box you keep meaning to cancel, or all those impulse purchases that just end up cluttering your closet.
The impulse purchase is guilty as charged. But, even small changes can make a big difference over time.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe it's swapping that daily latte for homemade coffee or finding like more affordable ways to enjoy your hobbies.
Exactly. It's not about deprivation. It's about just being more intentional with your spending and making sure your money is like really aligned with your priorities.
For sure. So we talked about saving, but then the podcast also encouraged exploring the world of investing, which can feel kind of intimidating.
I know, right? It feels very like finance expert territory.
Yeah,
But it doesn't have to be. Think of investing as putting your money to work for you. So instead of it just sitting in a savings account, it has the potential to grow over time.
right. That makes sense. But where do you even start? The podcast mentioned diversifying your investments,
Yeah, that one.
which sounded kind of complex.
It sounds very fancy, but it's actually a pretty simple concept. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Got it.
So instead of investing all your money in just one stock or one type of asset, you spread it out to reduce your risk.
So if one investment doesn't do well, you're not completely wiped out.
Exactly. It's like that old saying, don't bet the farm on one horse. And while we're on the topic of making smart financial choices, the podcast also highlighted the importance of avoiding wasted money.
Oh, yeah. They had a really good example. That gym membership you sign up for with the best intentions and then never actually use, I've been there.
Haha, yeah, classic case of good intentions gone wrong. But I think what's important here is not just recognizing like wasted money, but understanding opportunity cost.
Opportunity cost. That sounds kind of intimidating. What does that mean exactly?
It's a really powerful concept that helps us make, more mindful financial decisions. Essentially, it asks, what else could I have done with that money?
So in the gym membership example, instead of spending money on something I'm not using, I could have put it towards something more meaningful, like a weekend trip or, adding to my savings or even investing it to potentially grow.
Exactly. Every spending decision we make represents a trade-off. It's not just about the money itself, but what that money could have become if we had used it differently.
I'm seeing how all these vocabulary terms fit together. It's like pieces of a puzzle, helping us understand not just what money is, but how to actually use it wisely.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of language in general, right?
Yeah,
It allows us to not only describe the world around us, but to analyze it, to make sense of it, and ultimately to shape it to our advantage.
wow, what a journey through like the world of personal finance and all with like the power of vocabulary.
I know, right? It's really amazing how much clarity language can bring to like something like money management.
Totally.
By understanding these key terms, these concepts, we really gain a sense of control, I think, over our financial lives.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling super motivated to like actually put some of this knowledge into action,
Yeah, me too.
ready to like level up my money game.
Yes, that's the spirit. But before we wrap up completely, let's do a quick recap of like the key takeaways from our deep dive into money vocabulary.
Okay, so first we lay that foundation, right? With those essential terms: income, expenses, savings, budget, and debt,
Yeah.
like the ABCs of personal finance.
Exactly. And then we kind of explored, those different spending personalities, the big spenders versus the frugal folks, and how, like, there's no one right way to approach it.
Yeah.
It's all about aligning your spending with your values and your goals.
Then we talked about the power of saving up for something specific, right? Shifting that focus from deprivation to anticipation.
Love that.
And of course, like the importance of cutting back on those like unnecessary expenses and really making conscious choices about where our money's going.
We even touched on investing,
Yeah, we did.
demystified some of the jargon a bit, highlighted the importance of diversifying to manage risk.
And we can't forget wasted money and that powerful concept of opportunity cost, like always asking ourselves, what else could I have done with that money?
Such a good question to ask.
Okay, so before we sign off completely, I have one more question for you. What's like one small action step our listeners can take today to start putting all this into practice?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think a really good place to start is to just track your spending for like a week. You can use a notebook, a spreadsheet, an app, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Just get a clear picture of like where your money is actually going. You might be surprised by what you discover.
Such a simple but powerful suggestion. Awareness is like the first step.
Totally.
Well, huge thank you to all of our listeners for joining us on this deep dive into the world of money and vocabulary. It's been so fun.
Yes, thank you all for listening.
And remember, knowledge is power. Now you have like a whole new set of tools to really navigate your financial journey with confidence and clarity.
Keep those brains engaged, keep those conversations flowing, and just keep exploring those connections between language and the world around us.
And until next time, happy learning. May all your financial adventures be filled with abundance and, of course, wise decisions. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.